morning and welcome to Legally Speaking with Attorney Antoinette Osbourne. Oh. All right, so this program is for information purposes only. If you need legal advice, you can contact me, Antoinette Osbourne, at 718-502-9137. That's 718-502-9137. The office focuses on divorce, immigration, bankruptcy, real estate, and estate matters. We also do eviction proceedings. There is a second office in Jamaica, West Indies, that focuses on legal representation if you are looking to buy or sell property, or if you are seeking to wrap up an estate. So this morning, I wanted to focus on two visas where it presents a difficulty to adjust your status if you entered on this visa, or if you're looking for an extension or a change in status. So once again, if you have a question this morning, you can feel free to call in on the live. Bear with me 1 second. All right. Okay. So you can feel free to call in on the live at 718-502-9137, or you can actually post your question in the live, or you can text your question. I'll be able to see your question if you so desire to text it. All right. So I just wanted to focus on two visas, which in itself presents a difficulty when you are looking to either adjust your status, or if you wanted to change to another visa, or if you're seeking an extension of status. So the first visa I'm going to focus on is what is referred to as the in-transit visa. And it is the C visa. You'll see someone getting, like, when you open their visa page and you look at, expiration, issue date, you look at the type of visa. And this in-transit visa you'll see as a C visa, which is annotated in the passport. Now, the purpose of this visa, it speaks to itself by the very name of it, in transit. So it is expected that you're gonna enter the United States and you are going to immediately leave. So there is no time period really to be delaying, because it's like a pass-through visa. You're passing through the United States. There is actually no intention to stay. And that is why it's called in transit, because it's like it's a transition through the United States. And people usually use this type of visa where they're looking to get to a country that there generally is oftentimes no straight flights, or if they were supposed to go the roundabout way, the cost to do it is so expensive, and the cost itself will act as a deterrent. So people look to apply for this C visa to use it as an in-transit, where it's like a stepping stone to another country. So when you enter the United States and you are encountering CBP, you're going to go through the same questions as any regular visa holder, one of which is to see whether or not you have enough funds for the layover. And the time of the layover is usually determined by your ticket when you're supposed to board the next flight to leave. Now, when you have this visa, right, you are also ineligible for employment. You can't seek a work permit and what a lot of people need to understand is a work permit is not just an independent application. Like people will call the office, they want to apply for a work permit. So the next question is you try to determine who is filing for you. You're checking into their eligibility and you have to explain, because what people don't understand is when you come on the visitor's visa, which is the B1, B2. B2 is you're visiting for pleasure. B1 is where you're actually visiting for business purposes. So when you come on this visa, you're not eligible for a work permit because you come in as a tourist and your main intent is to do tourist things. That's the whole purpose of the visa. It's for pleasure. And with regards to, let's say, for a business purpose, you had a business meeting, you had a trade show to attend. So that's the main purpose of the B1, B2. So for your desire now to go ahead and look employment, that's not the purpose of this visa. So you have this visa and you're looking to seek employment. That what you should have applied for was a work visa, usually an employment visa. You have a petitioner who is a company who is sponsoring you. So this is the difficulty where people who come on the visitor's visa, they're under the impression that they can just go and get employment. It's not like that. Being employed is actually contradictory to your visa and it's a violation of the visa. So people who will come in on the C1 visa, it's mainly an in transit visa. Don't forget to like the live, don't forget to share the live. So the in transit visa speaks to itself. You are coming in transit. So it's a little bit difficult for people who come on this visa and let's say they wanted to change their status, they wanted to go to school. If it is that you entered on the C1 visa, the C visa, the transit visa, your desire to go to school is inconsistent because you're really not supposed to be in the United States for more than 29 days. The visa is to facilitate your transition to another destination. So, for example, if you are going to Bermuda, the only way to get to Bermuda is if you go through the UK, Canada, or the US. And people will prefer the transit visa through the US because the flights are cheaper. So the whole purpose of the visa is a facilitation. It's like a stepping stone to another country. So it is not intending for you to live, for you to work, for you to change to another type of visa. And you cannot get an extension of status. Some people would like to stay longer. The longevity of this visa is in fact for 29 days. So the C1 visa, the in transit visa, it is not intended for you to live in the United States. You are passing through. It is a pass-through visa. Good morning, Zalita. Good morning, Amarildo. So this type of visa is just like it speaks to. It's a transit. You are passing through. But I'll tell you this, there is a catch to the adjustment of status part of it. If it is that you are adjusting your status and you have this C1 visa, the limitation is if you are using, right, when you apply for the visa, you were applying to use the United States as an in transit to join a crew where you're definitely going to be a crew member, then if you, in applying for the visa, presented yourself in this manner, then I can tell you with no uncertainty, you cannot adjust your status. However, if it is that you came on the C1 visa and it was to transition to another destination, that's different, because you're not using the visa to join any vessel as a part of a crew, right? So what you'll find is, if it is that the visa, the whole purpose of it was just transitioning as opposed to using the United States to join a vessel, then if it's just transitioning to another destination, then you can adjust. If, however, it is being used to join a vessel as a crew member, you're not going to be able to adjust your status. So this is a fine distinction. And I'll tell you this, I had a client where she actually was supposed to join her dad in Bermuda, but her mom was here, so she ended up overstaying, right? So when we applied for the adjustment of status, the officer was like, he cannot approve the case because she entered on a C1 visa. So we're sitting in the office and we're debating back and forth. My stance was that she is eligible to apply because she was not using the visa to move on to join a crew. Anyway, so the man denied the case. Simple. So we got the denial and I went back. And in reapplying, I got the same requisition. So this time now, I made sure to attach a legal memorandum and, setting forth everything, the statute, case law, everything. And I made it to the attention of the supervisor, right? Because legally she has a basis. We don't want to put in applications where the client has no legal basis to apply, because under the old administration, it was, unfortunately, if there was no basis to apply, worse, you don't want as an attorney to make a frivolous application because it is an ethical violation for us. So I know my client has merit. I know there is merit in her case, so I'm not gonna stop. And it took some time, but eventually her case was approved and she was able to receive the green card. So it was a fight. And I remember I was discussing with one of my colleagues that, this is ridiculous, because you'll ask some people and they're like, no, it can't be done. But I had this one gentleman, we were just discussing the whole length of it, and that he's like, Antoinette, I did this, you're going to get a fight with it, but it is a correct application. And you maintain the fight, and the client was able to get her green card, right? Yeah, because Jesus, we don't want nobody, you know where my office is. We don't like problems. All right, so that's a drawback with the C1 visa. You have to be careful if it is that you are entering on this visa, and this is a C1. The C1 visa is a complete opposite to the D visa, right? The D visa, you're definitely coming as a crewman, and we're gonna take a look at that visa after. So the C1, there is a possibility, as long as you are not coming to be part of a crew, then you can adjust. The liability for you is if you used your C1 visa to join a crew, you're moving on to a vessel, you're just transitioning so you can go to the cruise ship, right? You are going to be a member, because oftentimes this is what, coming from the islands, you got a job on a cruise ship, so you came on that visa. Now, if the intent, right, or your application is to go ahead and join a crew, then definitely, if you came in that regard, you cannot adjust your status, right? The only exception is if you're just transitioning on that C1 visa so that you can move to another destination. There's no crew element to it. And for my client, she came in when she was 12 years old. So definitely she's not coming in to be part of a crew. You're not going to work as a part of a crew as a 12 years old person, right? All right. So, and they're very strict with these visas when you are coming to be a part of the crew, because the intent is to leave and to go on the vessel, right? So there is no intent to stay. You have 29 days when you come in on this visa and you're transitioning to another country, right? Or whether you came with the intent that you're going to use the C1 to join a crew. All right. So now, if it is, however, that you're entering to go on a crew for like recreational purposes, right? That's different, right? And it also does not include fishing vessels. Okay. But mainly people are really just using this visa because oftentimes they got a job on a vessel, or they're really transitioning to go to another destination. So, and you're using the United States as a pass through. In this event, you're using the United States as a pass through, you can adjust status. You're not going to be able to change status, however, and you're not going to be able to extend your status. All right. So Nicola is saying, send greetings to Madge. Good morning, Madge. All right. Now, let's get to the crewman visa. This is a tough visa, right? And people who are entering on this visa initially, they do not understand that you enter on this visa, you're absolutely not going to be able to adjust your status, right? So this is something where, if it is that, let's say you got a job on the cruise ship and you have to pass through the United States, you are not going to be able to adjust your status when you come in on the D visa. The D visa is a visa where it is strictly a crewman visa. You enter on this unless you are what is referred to as 245I. You enter on this visa, forget about it. You're not going to be able to adjust your status. You're not going to be able to extend your status, and you're not going to be able to change your status. This is a visa where people who think they can pick up in the United States, that's not going to be available to you. You cannot adjust your status when you enter on the D visa. That's a strict crewman visa. The ability to adjust, the ability to extend your status, the ability to change your status is not going to be available to you. So for people who entered on the crewman visa, what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to apply for a provisional waiver. That's the application that they're in fact going to have to make. All right. Now, it's tough where you're here for years, you entered on this visa, and now you have a family, and this is a scare that a lot of people have. And they're terrified because I can say with the embassy in Kingston, it's taking long to get dates for cases that got caught up in the COVID backlog. It's absolutely terrifying for these people who are waiting. Their priority date is in fact available, yet the embassy can't give them any dates. And I think one of the hardest things is for people who they're going down on the provisional waivers, and for people who are going through the Kingston embassy. And I really think the Department of State should accord another hospital in Jamaica other than Andrews to do the medical. The reason being is your interview dates are ahead of your date to get your medical done. So you'll have people who have completed their interview, and unfortunately, the medical comes a date way after the interview. And if it is that you're doing a provisional waiver, especially for kids who have no ties to Jamaica because they were raised in the United States. They came when they're very young children. The issue with this for them, unfortunately, is now they have the expense, because it's not as if you go to the interview, the embassy has all the information, they can now make a determination. The problem is they get stuck out there waiting on the medical. Now the medical has to go back to the embassy, and there are people who are ahead of you in getting adjudicated. So now it takes time to receive a decision. If it is that you have no relatives to stay with and you have to stay like at a motel or at an Airbnb, we have to be practical. This becomes expensive. And I think for those people who they don't have the ability to stay with somebody, so cost wise, it is in fact very expensive. And they have to be paying all this money to, the Airbnb or at a hotel. I really think that they need to have more than one. And I'm referring specifically to the embassy in Jamaica. I've never dealt with any embassy before where the medicals, because it is they're of the amount you have to wait for a date after your interview to get the medical done. And I really think the Department of State should look into according another medical facility in Jamaica with the ability to do the medicals, because realistically speaking, Andrews is in fact overwhelmed. Yeah, it takes time to get the appointment for the medical. The medicals oftentimes now, because when NVC, the National Visa Center, sends the date, right? Oftentimes, sometimes it can be like you have a month. So if the hospital is completely booked up and you have to wait, it's costing the person who does not live in Jamaica, had to get a waiver to go to their appointment, because they have to pay for somewhere to stay. They don't want to be on the streets. So as a result of that, now they get stuck with an expense. So what happens if the money's run out? Are they on the streets? Um, So Nicholas says, oh, good morning, Steffi and Pauline. Nicholas says there's a question from Zalita. So I'm going to try and see if I can read it. All right. So she hasn't posted the question as yet. So Nicola, you need to, let me see. Zalita is asking if there is a way to petition for the medical to be done here before they go to the interview. No, they have to do the medical in Jamaica, and this is why we need to get another facility. We have other medical facilities. I'm sure whatever screening process Andrews had to get the qualifications to do the medicals, I'm sure there is another facility in Jamaica that can do this. But I just find cost-wise, it is in fact burdensome for people to be stuck in Jamaica whilst the embassy has to wait on the medical, then do an adjudication. These things cost. Yeah, it's not for free. And when you get stuck out there, right? First of all, the people are completely terrified to go to the embassy, and now you have to wait because the medical is not available to be done prior to the interview date. And as it is with any government agency, they can't make a determination until all your documents are in. So it is tough, but it is what it is. All right, so let's go back to the crewman visa. So we're dealing with a crewman visa now. You got a job on a cruise ship, or probably with an airline, and you need to pass through the United States. So you're going to be conferred with a D visa, which is a crewman visa, or you could even get the C1 visa. But the limitation with this visa, if you get the D visa is such, you don't have the option to change status or adjust status or extend your status. And you'll find people are here with this visa for years, and because they don't want to leave. Some people are not going to apply for the provisional waiver because they just have a fear of getting stuck. Yeah. So they'll just stay here for years. And I'll never forget this lady. She was here for years. And some people, their main concern was to accumulate sufficient funds so that they can just maintain a nice lifestyle here. But I want to warn a lot of you, be careful how you send back home monies to your relatives to transact certain business for you, especially when your relatives know your status, know that you can't move. And some of you are sending substantial sum of monies to build homes. You'd be amazed at the number of people who have sent funds to their relatives to build homes, buy cars, to put taxi on the road, to invest. And by the time them reach, I have known of people who have sent monies to build houses, and the relatives buy the property in their name, or they send monies and their relatives eat the money. So when you come there, there's no land, there is no house. I mean, my thing is, like, literally, if you're gonna rob the people their money, at least just buy. Even if you're not gonna buy the house, just buy a piece of land at least give them a chance to build something. But to take the people their money, to take the people their money and just you take it for your own use and you abuse your own relatives. It's amazing to me that people engage in such wickedness and people don't understand it. And for a lot of the border crossers who came here, some of them actually went back home because they never realized, one, how hard they have to work. I don't know who like sending like some sort of information that manna is money is dropping from the sky like manna from heaven. It is not. You have to work, yeah. And I think New York State now has taken a stance where they are limiting the time that you can stay in the shelter. And if you need to go back into the shelter, you probably have to show extenuating circumstances because these things cost. Because remember, back in the day when you are run off, let's be practical now, right? So back in the day when you run off, nobody now give you health insurance, nobody now give you food stamp, nobody now give you a place to stay. You have to go look it. You stay with your relatives, and by a certain time you get kicked out, right? Because the intent is like you quote unquote in a them space. And for the people who are claiming refugee or asylum, oftentimes this application now, because that's a basis where they can look to get to stay. But the problem is now it's feeding on the resources. And I think Florida, no, what Florida, they have created their own immigration law, which that going to get knocked out. Yeah. I think Arizona tried to do it. It's only Congress who has jurisdiction over immigration, right? So, but the states are getting frustrated. And in their frustration, because the federal government is not dealing with it, they, on their own accord, have decided they're going to create their own laws to deal with it. I have heard, and you had some reporters who were doing investigative work, and some of these states were just giving them tickets to fly to California or fly to New York because it was taking away from their resources, right? And I think what happened is, I think it has calmed down in Florida, but people were, when DeSantis came out with this rule, people were leaving Florida in droves. There was no one to work on the farms. You would go to the farms. It is like, it vacant. People left because them afraid. Yeah. Had one woman, she said she was there for working in Florida for like 20 something years, and them pack up and them leave because they are terrified, right? But I think things have calmed down, but I'm telling you, I had even clients who they just left their apartments and them gone. That's it. Because they didn't want to get caught up in any raids. And I don't know remember when was this occurring? I think it was it like some years ago? I remember when you used to have even ICE was at the train stations. They were on the Long Island Railroad. And of course, the people them can't get to work are them free. So of course the people in Long Island start lick up because who go watch them picnic, them need to go to work, but it is what it is. But when you come on this CREWMAN visa, right? Hold on 1 second. All right, when you come on this CREWMAN visa, This is not the visa where you think that you can, the main intent was to join a crew. You can't think you're gonna come on this visa and adjust your status. It's not gonna work, right? So, all right, let me try and see if I can get this live question. All right, so I think Jeff Score is saying, good morning. My brother have done an immigration visa and everything has been completed and waiting for his passport. It's been a month and he hasn't gotten his passport. This is from April. It's just a month, so I'm not so concerned. What they can do is they can reach out to the embassy and just inquire of a status update with regards to that, right? If the embassy requests any additional documentation, then of course they will send a requisition. Now, my concern is when the embassy, and sometimes the embassy will call people, oftentimes they call people, right? And it's usually sometimes from a number that is not known. And if the voicemail is full, you're gonna miss that message. You need to let your relatives know, clear the voicemail all the time. Yeah. I'm gonna encourage you to tell them, clear the voicemails. Because when the embassy calls and they are looking to leave a message and there's no room to leave a message, me can't say when they're gonna call back, right? Okay, so Salita is saying, can what is this? A grandmother who is a citizen and a returning resident apply for a visitor's visa for her granddaughter with a consent letter. Her parents don't have visas. I don't see why not. You know, you have even aunts going to the embassy to apply for a visa, a visitor's visa for their niece and nephew. However, this does not stop the embassy from looking into the background of the parent. Yeah. But yeah, I don't see an issue as to why a grandmother who, now the question is, of course, make sure you know that you know what you're gonna say when you are looking to take the child up. It must always be for purposes that conform to a visit, right? So it cannot be that there is any form of intent to have the child remain in the United States. The purpose must always be for a tourist purpose, right? So, Amarilla says he remembers Trump days. Trump days was kind of, it was rough for immigrants. But I'll tell you this, the amount of border crossers went down significantly, you know? But regardless of the Trump days, I just wish to let everyone know the highest deportation was under the Obama administration. Don't get it twisted. Record numbers of people were deported. Yeah. All right. So if it is that your family member works on a cruise ship, right? That family member, if they need to go and visit their family that is actually employed on the cruise ship, they're not applying for a crewman visa. They are actually going to be applying for either they apply for a visitor's visa. Yeah, that's the visa they should really be focusing on, right? I mean, even if they get the in-transit visa, they're not going to be looking to work as a crew member. So that should not prevent them from getting an adjustment of status. But if your family member is seeking to visit you on a cruise ship, then that visa, you should be looking at the B1, B2 visa. All right. Now, if you're going in, let's say you decide that you want to take a cruise. Yeah, because some people, I'll tell you this, after COVID, a lot of people living their best life, right? People are no longer confining themselves to their homes. I think COVID made us, it woke the world up, right? And during COVID, the entertainment industry got hit hard. But once the restrictions were lifted, we saw people who wouldn't even have thought of getting out there traveling, they started to travel because we have one life. And people, I think, when COVID occurred, they started to appreciate life, right? I know for me, that period, it was, I think, the most divorces I've ever filed in a year. People just realized that life is for living. They were possibly in situations in their home life that they decided were not putting up with. Because I'll tell you, and this is why they say don't grudge anybody. Some people are in their homes and they're literally suffering. Yeah. And just to even be a fly on the wall in some of these homes, you realize how strong some people are. Because I'm sitting in the chair I am in, I will tell you this, because my chair really is to hear people problem and in what way I can assist them legally. But sitting in this seat sometimes, and the things that people go through, like the injustice and the disrespect, you just have to be amazed at the strength of people. Because me personally, all right, so I mean, it is what it is, but I will tell you, this place, yeah, I'll tell anybody this. You see this place? You're strong in this place. This is something that I want people to appreciate. Because sometimes the level of injustice that will occur in this place not easy. Yeah? Really and truly it's not. But it is what it is. I think America teach you to really appreciate life in itself. Yeah? Because the amount of injustice that can go through sometimes, it does not make sense. Yeah. All right. So someone had texted, good morning, Miss Osborne. How long can you stay out of the country with a green card? You're only allowed as a green card holder to stay 6 months outside, right? What some people are doing when they get the green card is, in order to, how do you put it now? Like, in order not to trigger attention, they would stay out for 3 months, go down, and then come back up. But when they come, they only spend like a week or two. The problem with this is the officer, in deciding whether or not to put you in removal proceedings as a green card holder, looks at your entire travel history, how long it is that you actually stay here. So people who think that, they have quote unquote beat the system by coming up probably 3 or 4 times for the year, this is not an intent thing. Nobody cares about your intent. If you live this way, I always say to my clients, make sure there's somebody, if you end up in removal proceedings, who has the ability to file for you. Because the officer doesn't have to look at your intent. Nobody cares about your intent. It is whether or not you're living in the United States or what you're doing outside the country that establishes these things. So people are maintaining their jobs overseas. They're not filing taxes in the United States. They have no leases here. They're not using any credit cards here. They don't have any utility bills here. They're not doing anything here that ties them to the United States. So obviously you're living elsewhere. So I remember this girl, she was working at the bank. Yeah, she was working at the bank. And in working at the bank, she was coming up, and the officer said to her, because he's looking at her travel history, and she'd probably come up once or twice a year, sometimes 3 times. And in looking at her travel history, he said, if you are coming here to spend a week, the next time you come, you're going to be placed in removal proceedings. Yeah, man. She instantly call her job back home and quit and stay. Everything is generally out. Until CBP lets you in, you're not in. Yeah. And this also applies to United States citizens. CBP have to let you in. So even though immigration really, when you're here, has no jurisdiction over you, when you're at the border, it's a different ball game, Rasta. You don't have to be let back in to the country, right? Now, U.S. citizens can live outside of the country in another country for any duration that they want. The government doesn't restrict you that you have to be here. You're not in the position of a green card holder. It's a different ball game for you. However, if you are working, you are required to file taxes. So I think anyone who is looking to leave should query these things, because you have to know your obligations. Yeah. And one of the most dangerous nemesis that you can have is the tax department, because when you can face jail for something, if you're doing any transaction with anyone and you can face jail, you have to realize this is not your friend. Yeah. And this is why when people are like detained by law enforcement and they're just running their mouth, it's ridiculous. Shut up your mouth and hire an attorney. Just stop speaking. Stop. You are just surprised how people they like to run their mouth. But anyway, this CREWMAN visa is a visa where the main intent was for you to be able to be able to stop at different ports as a crew member, right? So you have a maximum stay of 29 days in the United States. Often you are just moving from one port to the next. If you have to stop in the United States for anything, because oftentimes these cruise ships, they dock in the United States. You want to come off and you want to be able to, go back on the ship. Just to dock alone, you go through immigration, right? So the crewman visa really is to facilitate yourself as a part of a crew. Hi, love, you're on the air.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning,
I have
darling.
a two-part question.
Mm-hmm.
The first part of the question is, after your medical, how long it takes to get the interview for the US? And two, what happens if you could fail your medical, you test positive for marijuana?
All right, so I never heard the second question, but you have asked about the first question. Is a person overseas who is getting the green card, or are they adjusting?
The person is in Jamaica, that being filed.
Okay, so the person is in Jamaica. They did their medical already,
No, the way to get the medical done.
and their date for the medical is before the interview or after the interview?
After the is before the interview, during the medical June 14th.
Okay, so they're doing the medical before their interview.
Yes.
Okay, so by then Andrews would be able to send it over to the embassy. So I'm not sure in your first question what it is exactly are you asking?
No, I'm saying how long it takes to get interview date after the medical, and what happens if you fail the medical, you test positive for marijuana.
Okay, so anyone who is doing their medical would have had their interview date already, because you can't do your medical without the facility seeing your interview date. Now, if it right, so you can't schedule a medical without that date. Now, here's the issue for people who are testing positive for marijuana, right? And sometimes some people may not test, but the honesty, you see, because when you go to these interviews, they're intimidating, and you're gonna be honest, and you're gonna be asked if you smoke marijuana. When is the last time you smoke? Generally, you're held back for a year, right?
Okay.
So, and the reason they're holding you back is so that they can retest you to see whether or not they're going to find the marijuana again in the system, because they're trying to determine whether or not you are a substance abuser, which would make you inadmissible. So you have people who have gone, tested positive, and by the next year they're clean, so they will issue the visa. All right?
Okay.
All right, my darling. Take care.
Okay.
All right. So, yeah, I think one of the things, because the states here have become so lax with the marijuana, in that once it's being used for personal use, and I believe once, I don't smoke, but for people who do smoke, this is, you're at the state level when it comes to the state saying, hey, it's cool, you can have this amount of marijuana for your personal use, we don't care. Immigration is the feds. They care, right? So when it is that you have this conviction, and New York has, in doing their dispositions, I don't think it benefits immigrants with these marijuana offenses, because on the disposition, there is a notation to the bottom of it where it says that the conviction is vacated, dismissed, and sealed. But above that, you see a plea of guilt. So you walking in with that disposition, I don't believe that helps you, because for immigration, a conviction is you pleading guilty to all the elements of the crime. And way above that, you see they pled guilty. And I really think New York needs to reissue dispositions where they remove that whole line of pleading guilty and just put, like you would with any conviction where it's dismissed, you see the charge and you see dismissed, and you got seal the something. How is it supposed to help people? It does not make sense to me. And that's the reality of it. To me, it does not make sense. And this is something that has stopped people for years. And especially anybody who used to live in America in the 90s, and I think the 80s was a time where, yo, you see White Plains Road, Jamaica Avenue, any part of Brooklyn? It's a whole heap of arrest. You get through a charge on. Yeah. So I remember one of my clients was hanging out. And just a hang out, because I mean, boys will be boys. Them hang out with them friend. You got hang out with some of your friend who are unruly. You got hang out with some of your friend them that decent. But most of the time you hang out on the street, enough of them unruly. Let's get real. And you just hang out and boops. There goes a charge. Yeah? But when you don't have papers and you have to fight this, you're now in a different field. Because now you're fighting for your green card. And there are a lot of people who in the 90s really get some serious weed charge under this. Yeah? So, I don't know, that disposition, no, you're trying to do 440 motions to vacate this, and now the fact there's no file. So it's either you help people or, to me, this disposition makes absolutely no sense where you see the big plead guilty. Yeah? But it is what it is. What can I tell you? All right. So that's it today for... Oh, Audra is saying good morning. Yeah? All right. So that's it today for the program. For your friends who are coming on the CREWMAN visa, this is a visa they can't address and they have to know. And some people have the CREWMAN visa and some people have the visitor's visa. So when it is you are entering, if you have both of these visas, make sure that they're permitting you in. Make sure when they say, why are you here, you specifically state that you're here just to visit your relatives or whatever tourist thing you are in fact coming to do. Because they let you in on the CREWMAN visa. That's it. And you overstay, you're not going to be able to interview, despite the fact that you had the visitor's visa in your passport. Is what they let you in on. Yeah? So it is what it is. Anyway, have a blessed Sunday. Spend some time with your family. Enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. And stay safe and continue to be blessed. Take care. I'll see you next week.